So today on White Devil Wednesday, we have joined by a personal friend of Jason Myles, Joshua Citarella, who is an artist, and he is also a game designer. I'm going to show you a little picture before we bring him on. A new game here for us to see called Class Fantasy. So Class Fantasy is a game where it's kind of, I guess, it's a card-based game. If you know Magic the Gathering, I suppose it's vaguely in the Magic the Gathering realms, but from what I can tell, it's a little bit more like the classic card game Citadels. If anybody knows the game Citadels, it might work. That's perhaps like a better analogy, but it is a card-based, fantasy-themed, class-based game. So I don't have a soundboard, so Vaughn, would you be the soundboard and make the noise for me, like the? Please welcome the one, the only, our fellow White Devil, Joshua Citarella. Welcome to TIR, Joshua. Welcome.
Hey, gamers.
Gaming.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to come on to talk about this game. So let's start with basics. Who the hell are you, Joshua? Why do I care about who you are? And how do you know Jason?
Right. Yeah, I'll give a quick background because I think my particular work and the field that I come from is probably a little bit different than most of the guests that people have on podcasts, especially those dealing with politics. I'm an artist. I studied art. I used to teach in art schools. And in around, I want to say 2018, 2020, my career started to take this turn where I started producing less things that were hung in galleries and museums and instead started to publish on my own in the form of essays and podcasts and books. And I still make artworks and show in museum and institutional contexts and so on. But I decided to open up my practice to something that was much more on the internet rather than in the academy. Particularly what I was writing about at that time was emergent behavior on social media among Gen Z meme posters. So I was writing about kids that were at the time between ages 12 to 17, and I would see them maybe a bit older than our new guest here, but the kids that were essentially too young to drive, but were posting political materials on the internet. And I conducted a series of, one-on-one interviews with them, over Discord and chats and all sorts of things. And then I compiled that work into a book to try and map the landscape of emergent political sentiment among kids that were hyper fluent in internet communities and were, posting, consuming YouTube videos, podcasts, et cetera, and so on. And so what really kind of sparked the inspiration for this project specifically is that I would see people treat the internet meme posting space, social media platforms in general, as a massive MMORPG, massive multiplayer online role-playing game, where they would cosplay and LARP as different political ideologies. There's a classic meme that people might be familiar with called Flavors of Anarchy. Sometimes it's referred to as this. Derek's shaking his head. Yeah. There's so if people haven't seen it, just to kind of explain what this is, imagine every color of the rainbow. There's usually a little icon like a flag or what's called a pole ball, which is a character kind of cartoon of a political ideology. And you will have red and black anarcho-communism, red and green anarcho-primitivism, red and yellow anarcho-capitalism, mutualism, agorism, queer anarchy, anarcho-feminism, anarcho-transhumanism. There's a million different variations of this. So the conventional version of this begins with these kind of color and black balls, and you get to choose your character from all of these different edgy internet political ideologies. That to me struck me as something that was very similar to the character creation screen. So when you're logging into a game like World of Warcraft, for example, which was a huge part of my childhood. So I growing up, middle school, high school, and then into my college career, I played World of Warcraft very seriously at the height of my college career. I was globally ranked in the top 1% of arenas in PvP, playing Rogue Mage Priest. I took it really seriously. Like, that was my job. Everything else was kind of a side project. I don't live that life anymore, unfortunately. Maybe one day I'll go back to it. But what was very peculiar to me is that there were people, around the age that I was when I started playing games, that they were faced with, graphically, just formally, it's very similar. Here's a lineup of different characters to choose from, and you have to imagine whether you identify, with the anarcho-transhumanist, for example, or the undead knight, which is it seems like a very direct parallel. Additionally, there's characters like let's say, the paladin in Dungeons and Dragons, who is lawful good. He enforces the law, whatever. Is this maybe analogous to a police officer in the modern day analogy? There's all sorts of weird uh, uh, parallels between the role-playing space and the way that the game space is approached, especially evident among young people who are encountering this for the first time. So I wanted to take that very, very seriously. I wanted to take that as a serious premise, that the way that young people are approaching internet material and posting memes at these early stages is directly like they're playing a role-playing game. What made that really clear for me in the beginning of this is that I saw, I want to say the poster was around, I never interviewed them or spoke with them, but contextually, I would estimate they're around 14 or 15 years old. And they were posting from an anarcho-capitalist account, which I happen to think is just the absolute funniest bunch of lunatics on the internet. Their memes are always entertaining. He posted a meme, and in the caption it said, "If you like my content, make sure to follow me on my anarcho-primitivist account, and also on my mutualist account." So we have, yeah, we have one character here, or sorry, one poster, one individual, who is posting three different, I would say, overlapping but largely exclusive ideological propaganda projects. And what this person is doing is essentially testing in real time the feedback of different communities to gauge where they, as an individual, align in this kind of role playing process. So, it's interesting. There are maybe points of overlap between some of those things. Just to kind of give a little bit of context around these accounts, the anarcho-capitalist account is memes of like Hayek and Friedman and Lysander Spooner maybe on the edge, like kind of anti-authoritarian sentiments. And then the anarcho-primitivist account is people all the way from like James C. Scott to Kaczynski to John Zerzan, people like that. Mutualists, you have Proudhon. There's points where they could get fuzzy around the edges, but largely they're kind of exclusive worldviews that are non-overlapping. So I wanted to take that thing seriously. That became the inspiration for the game. And many years later, I guess that initial story I'm describing was probably in 2015 or 16 when I saw those posts. And it took me like 8 years uh, to allow myself to have a little fun with the process and make this card game that we're going to talk about tonight. So excuse my long intro, but I think that story is really, it just opens up a lot for me, and it's a good introduction to the project.